5 minutes to the gentleman from Wisconsin, Representative Ron Kind.
The gentleman from Wisconsin is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my friend for yielding me this time. And, Mr. Speaker, I do rise in support of the resolution before us. It is a very simple and straightforward resolution. It expresses our support and gratitude to our troops and our disapproval with the President's escalation plan in Iraq. Because I have believed for some time now that we are in desperate need of a new direction and not an escalation in Iraq. And it's not like we're confronted with a new plan by the President here today. We've tried 3 troop surges in the last 2 years alone without the desired result. And I don't know what the President sees or hears today that leads him to believe that the 4th time is a charm. No, Mr. Speaker, from the beginning, this has been the wrong war at the wrong time for the wrong reasons. We now know that Saddam Hussein did not, in fact, possess weapons of mass destruction. He had no involvement in the attacks on September 11th. He had no links with al-Qaeda. And I believe then, as I do today, that while he may have been potentially dangerous, he was eminently containable. But I, too, must share some responsibility for having supported the Iraq resolution in the fall of 2002. I did so while believing the President when he stated that the goal was disarmament and not regime change, that war would be a last resort and not a convenient option, that he'd work through the UN Security Council and through the international community rather than taking unilateral action. But I also believe that it was important at that time to get weapons inspection teams back in Iraq to search for weapons, or to at least keep an eye on Saddam so he didn't develop capability to do harm. And I also believe that we could not accomplish that goal without a credible threat of force hanging over Saddam's head. And when, in fact, we did accomplish it and got inspection teams back in with unfettered access, I was sitting through administration briefings, asking them if we are cooperating with them, if we're directing them to suspected sites. Of course we were, they said, but they're not finding anything. And that's when that pit in my stomach first formed, that perhaps Saddam did what he said he did all along, and that's disarm. And that's when I, along with my friend and colleague Sherrod Brown, drafted a letter signed by 150 of our colleagues in January of 2003 asking the President to give the inspection teams time to do their job and not rush in because they weren't finding anything. But instead of heeding our advice, he ordered the inspection teams out, sent our troops in with insufficient force to secure the peace, with no plan for the day after, with no clear objectives, and with no exit strategy, all contrary to the Paul Doctrine. And now we are where we are today, with over $500 billion already spent, over 3,000 lives lost, over 23,000 injured who have returned home. Yes, we do need a new direction and not an escalation. It's time for us to turn over responsibility for the security to the Iraqi people so we can begin a redeployment of our forces first within the country. Let's get them off the front lines and off the main streets of Baghdad where they can still play a support role, but which could also lead to a redeployment eventually out of country so we can refocus our energies on the real national security threat. And that's dismantling the al-Qaeda global network that we face, making sure we don't lose Afghanistan, making sure the Taliban doesn't reconstitute themselves, and making sure that we bring those who are directly responsible for September 11th to justice, like Osama bin Laden, who is still at large and roaming free today. But we also need to get the Arab League involved, because they can help with reconstruction, they can help with security, they can help add legitimacy to the Iraqi government. It's not in their interest to see the Sunni-Shia conflict spill outside of the Iraq borders and sweep the region, which is a very real threat today, nor is it in Iran and Syria's interest to be on the opposite sides of a civil war that may break out in Iraq. That's what a plan, a new direction should look like, one that we should be pursuing rather than just more of the same, stay the course. Mr. Speaker, I've had the opportunity on 3 occasions to visit our troops in the field in Iraq. I also visited our troops during the height of the military engagement in the Balkans. And nothing has made me prouder to be an American than seeing our troops in action, because they are so very good. They are well motivated, they're well trained, they're the best our nation has to offer. I've had 18 military funerals in my congressional district alone, most of which I personally attended. And if I don't have to attend another military funeral, if I don't have to pick up the phone to call another grieving family, I will be one of the happiest people in the world. And they are a constant reminder of the human toll this is having, not only with our troops, but with their families and our community, and that's exactly why we should be debating this resolution, because it's imperative that war is a last resort, that we as policymakers do everything we can to get the policy right because of the impact it has on our troops, their family, and our communities. And it's important that we give them a mission that they can succeed in. It's time to stop asking them to babysit a civil war. It's time to support this resolution and give the President a clear indication of where this Congress sits. I yield back the remainder of my time.